Slayyyter. She is an electronic and pop artist who has been making music for a decent amount of time, dropping singles throughout the late 2010s, but it wasn't until 2021 that she released her debut album. As far as I know, it wasn't really until this year, 2026, that she gained a lot of buzz and attention, more than she has ever gotten before, since this new album of hers, Worst Girl in America, has received so much love and attention online, to the point where it even overtook I Love My Computer and the classic house album Justice's Cross in the best electro house album chart on Rate Your Music, causing it to rank as the best electro house album of all time. At that point, I just had to give it a listen. Keep in mind, this was my first introduction to her music, so when I heard the singles released for the album, I genuinely thought Slayyyter was a group. At her best, her sound feels detailed and layered, to the point where it could easily be mistaken for the work of a full musical group. Going back to Justice, there are moments on this album that carry slight Justice-like vibes, but with a sassy feminine edge laid on top. Dance is a great example of this, serving as a fiery opening to the record. It's a nightclub anthem that's literally about wanting to dance, fully living up to its title both lyrically and musically by making you want to do exactly that. Cannibalism has this driving killer bass line that is a core reason why the song is a favorite of mine. It also has a strong chorus with vocals that are reminiscent of Grimes, whereas her voice in the verses is what I imagine Mabel Pines would sound like if she were an adult. She also sort of sounds like Hemlock Springs here during some specific moments. And to continue going over my favorite songs on here, Old Technology has possibly the most irresistibly addictive chorus, as well as one of the best instrumentals, being really bouncy and featuring this quirky earworm synth line with a switch up to these flashy guitars that builds up to the drop excellently. It's a pretty aggressive banger, but it sounds soft in comparison to the following Crank, which cranks up the noisiness and aggressiveness up to the next level, with explosively vicious production behind it, and Slayyyter's tone in her voice carrying a lot of bratty attitude. I also find Unknown Loverz to be a standout moment in the tracklist, as it doesn't head in the aggressive deadpan noisy direction that a lot of the other tracks take. In fact, it goes in almost the complete opposite direction, as the vocal lines are pretty and the most angelic they get on the album. It's a nice change of pace, even when the nostalgic sounding almost MGMT coded beat drops. Her vocals are airy and atmospheric, sort of reminding me of the type of singing you'd get from a Magdalena Bay song. Things dip in quality once you get past the first 5 tracks though, and at that point I was struggling to see if this album was really worth the hype. There are instrumentals in this section of the album that I find underwhelming and pretty bland, honestly. I feel like I've heard that same synth line in Gas Station 1,000 times before. This is even more so the case for I'm Actually Kinda Famous, but with an instrumental that feels even less progressive. I can see what this track was trying to go for, with it attempting to poke fun at the egotistical cocky attitudes of those people who flex that they're famous for the sake of attention at clubs, and trying to deliver that same sassy energy in this track, but it just comes off as pretty annoying as a result, even if it is satirical and supposedly goes hand in hand with the title of the album in a sense. Her talking like shouty vocals just don't hit for me. The most disrespectful insult I can give it is that it's like this decade's version of the Chainsmokers Selfie song, and as for the other tracks, I don't find them to bring anything new or exciting to the table like old Flings. If you could say a song was Slayyyter by the numbers, then this would be a good example of that, and as the album reaches its end, the more formulaic sounding and repetitive its sound gets. I do wish the production had more flavor, unique characteristics, and more variety going for it, and it's through the first 5 songs as well as Unknown Loverz that you hear those creative, flavorful instrumentals, whereas many of the other tracks don't have instrumentals that feel as exciting or uniquely special. They mostly just sound like different versions of the same electro beats, with drops during the chorus and synth lines that don't sound all that different melodically from one track to the next. It's really Slayyyter's different ways of approaching her voice that give the tracks their distinct character, as she can shift from a talky looking like deadpan monotone delivery, to shouty, aggressive, super pissed off tones, to a quirky, slightly squeaky style, or just straight up melodically singing. Some of these voices give off Britney Spears vibes, while others I'm reminded of Grimes, as I mentioned earlier, and she incorporates these influences pretty well, but each different vocal style she attempts doesn't always hit the target successfully for me. There are even moments where I find her voice to be pretty generic sounding, honestly, and overall the album feels more one-dimensional instrumentally than I would like it to be. I also have to scratch my head and wonder what all the massive hype is about, because do I really think this will go down as the best electro house album of the year? If so, it's certainly not as enjoyable an experience as I Love My Computer by Nina Geraci, which was the most acclaimed electro house album of last year, and rightfully so. Yet this Slayyyter album seems to be getting even more praise than that one. I do think the highlights are generally strong, songs I can see myself replaying over and over for a long time, but I just wish the album didn't dip in quality so much during the second half. If Slayyyter continues developing the potential she showcased on the album's best moments, I believe she could eventually release an album that ranks among the best electronic projects of this decade. As of now though, we're not quite there yet. Please like and subscribe.